just like beaming and I was radiating. I was so happy. And he looked at me and he was like, it's unbelievable. Like the way that women from one moment to the next, like your moods can change so much. And he was like, it's really special, but it's just not something I ever experienced. I never experienced that high and that low, where obviously I was on my cycle and I was just a bit, a bit crazy in a way. And he was like, it's really quite cool. And I was like, yeah, it is quite cool, but it's also quite crazy that this is what happens to us. And for men, Nick, he was like, I wake up and most days I'm the same. He was day to day. He was the same person, and that's not how I feel. I feel like I'm on an emotional roller coaster most of the time.
But you seem like you become quite positive about the changes that happen to you.
Yeah, I think so. I think the thing with being on a roller coaster is that you also get these amazing highs. And I think that's sometimes what we forget is, we get PMS and we get really down. But then when our hormones are up, like we feel amazing. And I think the thing with periods is it makes you want to connect with your body a bit more. I think it forces you to practice more self-care. It forces you to be kind and gentle, like making myself a hot water bottle, getting my favorite thing on Netflix and like having a cup of tea when I'm on my period. That's an act of self-love. And I don't think I would do those things if it wasn't for my period. So I think being grateful for that is quite nice.
I love that. I think that more women could look at their period like that, because I think a lot of women, they tend to just focus on the week of their period or the few days before their period where things for them aren't great, and then they define their menstrual cycle like that. And flipping it on its head like you've done is really positive. And I love what you said about the magic of having a hormone cycle. But I wanted to just also go back to what you were saying about the way that your team adapts to having a period. And you kind of work around your team's period. Maybe that's not the best way of putting it, working around their periods, but you're flexible. You said that you have a week in your menstrual cycle where you feel really strong, really powerful. Does that change? Do you find that you change the way you relate to your team during that time?
I definitely changed the way I relate to my work in that time. I have to be a bit careful sometimes because it can make me feel kind of so confident that I'll take meetings and I'll walk in and just say yes to stuff that a week later I'm like, oh, I can't actually do that. Like, why did I promise that? So I have to be a bit careful with it. I think the thing is, I don't necessarily work around the periods of my team, but we talk really openly about it. And I think just having a culture where if I know that they're really tired, like I'm going to go a bit more gentle, or I'll let them work from home. I think that's important. There's a fine line, I think, as an employer between like pandering to certain things and being a bit too pampering, and being respectful and understanding of where someone's at. So there's a fine line in it. But I think big companies could do a lot more to make women feel comfortable at work and to encourage, I don't know, just a happier workplace culture. That, like I said about the tampons thing, I think even just an employer being like, you have a period and I know that, in itself is empowering.
Yeah. Having free tampons, menstrual leave, what else do you think employers can do to be more flexible around menstrual health?
I think there's a big link between menstrual health and mental health. And I think the whole thing is just about creating a culture of openness and conversation and dialogue. I never learned how to be a boss, and I've just had to work it out in the years that I've run my business. And I think one of the hardest things that I've learned is that you have to have the uncomfortable conversations sometimes, and you have to make yourself a bit uncomfortable to get the best out of your employees. So I try as much as I can to sit down individually with them and be like, how are you feeling? And how is your head? And how are you feeling about this work? And all these kind of questions that maybe make us a bit uncomfortable. Like, we're British, we don't really want to talk about our feelings very much, but they are there and they matter. And so it's all related for me: mental health, menstrual health. And also a few of the people that work for me do suffer with mental health, and it very much flares up around their periods. So for me, it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay. You mentioned the importance of femtech.
Yeah.
What you said, you talked about Moody Month, which is an amazing app. What other examples of femtech have you seen that you think are important to be aware of?
There's a couple of things that I think are really cool. LV is another great brand that lots of people are talking about. They have a breast pump and they have a pelvic floor trainer. And they did an incredible raise of investment, which was like history making. So LV is another one that I think is really cool. And then I'm seeing lots of new young tampon and sanitary product brands, one called Oni, another one called Dame that does CD tampons. I'm seeing quite a lot of innovation in that space. And again, not a conversation that I'd had when I was younger, but I'm starting to realize that we need to look at the quality of the products that we're putting in our bodies. And I just blindly picked up Tampax because that's what everyone did for years and years, and sometimes I still do, but now I'm starting to question, like, is this the best quality product I could be using? And it's like going inside me, like, what am I putting inside me? And I didn't know at all. So that's really important. And then I've got friends who are experimenting a lot more with how they manage their periods. So friends that love moon cups who are using those as a more sustainable option. And I have a friend who free bleeds, who uses period underwear because she finds that tampons make her period pains a lot worse. So just for her whole cycle, she wears period underwear and free bleeds. But I'm like enjoying seeing people try new things, and actually, because that shows that we're progressing, because we're willing to question what we've been doing, basically.
So have you changed the menstrual products that you've used?
Yeah, at the moment I'm using Dame, the CBD tampons, and they also have regular ones as well. Also because they're like a young startup run by a woman. I just wanted to support an independent brand. I was like, why am I giving so much money to Tampax? There's another brand called Frida that does similar, and they have a subscription service. For a while I used Pink Parcel, which is, I don't know if you know it, but it's a period box delivery company, and every month they would send you things for your period, like products, tampons, sanitary pads, etc., as well as things to make you feel good, which I think is quite nice. But I found that actually, I don't know, sometimes we can play into a bit of a cliche with periods, and I don't think necessarily that tea and chocolate is always what we need. It's quite specific. So after a while I was like, could buy something. I would say on the femtech front, having hosted so many panel talks about it, I think one of the really big issues that I'm seeing is that basically when a lot of women are going to get investment for these kind of companies, they're sitting in a room full of men, and the VCs and the investors or private equity, they don't connect with it, they don't get it, and then they're not willing to put the investment money forward. So I think what's really impressive about Elvie is they raised a hell of a lot of money. You know, it gets a lot of difficulty because very often I've heard these anecdotes about men being like, oh, we just don't really get it because like we don't get who it's for, we don't really understand it, because they don't have periods, they don't understand why you'd need this kind of business. So this is a real problem I'm seeing, is femtech can't get past a certain stage. You know, and in the UK 40% of female businesses don't get past seed stage after they get investment. Like they just burn out really early. And I think this is one of the reasons, it's like men aren't connecting. So we need more female VCs, or we need more aware men.
There's a big movement in the US where there are really a few really prominent female VCs. And I think there's a big female focus VC. What do you think needs to happen in the UK for that to take hold over here?
I mean, I think it's similar. We do need more female VC. It's all problematic because, you know, often VCs are people that have started businesses and then sold them and then gone on to be an investor. So we need more women to be starting businesses, and they need to be successful in selling, you know, at a certain success rate. And it's also a cultural shift. I think usually I found it kind of, the cultural shift happens and then the policy shift changes, and then you see it kind of reflected in the corporate world and in policy. So I'm hoping that the more that we talk about it, basically, is the more light that you can shed on the issue, the better the situation will be, I hope. And we are seeing more. I've noticed a lot more kind of female-only VC companies popping up. But I mean, women do more crowdfunding for their businesses, probably for this reason.
So tell me a little bit about the festival that you're putting on. You said, when is it?
Sure. So it's the 13th and 14th of March. So it's in a couple of weeks' time, and it's to celebrate International Women's Day, which is on the 8th of March. And we're putting on a 2-day festival. It's called She Started It Live, and we have 75 speakers across 2 days, and it is absolutely everything to do with female empowerment and entrepreneurship. So everything from starting your own business and getting investment to having healthy hormones and healthy relationships. It's just a real mix of different things. So I think for me, female empowerment isn't just looking the world of work, it's the interrelation between everything, like how does our health affect our work and how do we feel about ourselves. So it's a mix between kind of intuition and mind body stuff, as well as some practical career know-how.
What made you decide to set up this festival?
So we did our first one in September. It came out of we were doing basically similar stuff, but we were spreading it out across a number of weeks. But we were doing lots of panel talks about female entrepreneurship. And I thought, wouldn't it be great just to bring all those panel talks into the one day? And that's what we decided to do. So rather than have it spread out across the season, we brought it into the one day. And it wasn't actually different. It was just it was something I had mentally had to get over because it kind of scared me, to be honest. I was like, putting on a festival felt like a much bigger thing. And then we did our first one, which was 1 day. And now we're doing our next one, which is 2 days. So this is how we grow as business people. I just think that it's really important to create physical spaces for women. Like, I love having digital communities. I think it's great that we have Instagram and that we have all these social media platforms to connect with other people. But I don't think that should be at the cost of the physical. And what I'm trying to do is bring everything back into a physical space, because there's something very powerful when you get women together in a room and take it off the internet into the physical space, so they can network, they can connect, they can chat, they can make friends. Like, God, making friends in London is hard, you know. Yeah. Anything that we can do to bring women together and to empower them, really.
And what have you seen? So you had your first festival in September. What were some of the outcomes that you saw from that festival?
I mean, it was amazing. We've had so many women contact us afterwards saying, I launched my own thing off the back of it. It gave me the confidence I needed. We had a lot of people coming who I think were just at that kind of sweet spot of being almost ready, but not quite ready. And then they kind of took the leap, having, I don't know, heard from an inspirational speaker or met someone on the day. So we had lots of people contacting us afterwards. But it was also a great opportunity for us as a business to listen to our audience and to learn what it is that they're struggling with, what it is they want to learn about, and the barriers in place for them. So one of the things that we're offering at this festival is that we have free childcare for both days. And that came about really from having conversations at the last festival, where women were saying to me, I had this friend that she wanted to come, but she's got a kid and she came along, or I came, but I had to leave my kid with my husband and he's annoyed at me, whatever it is. And I just thought, well, there must be some solution to this. So we really quite easily sorted out childcare for the festival, and I was almost embarrassed by how easy it actually was to sort out. We worked with a great company who are providing it for us, and that was a big thing. And I realized that this is what needs to happen. Basically, the structures change around women so that they're able to progress. There are just these barriers that are stopping women achieving their full potential, or even just coming to an event.
So you've launched this festival, and you launched the website in 2014 and the academy. What are some of the lessons that you can share with female entrepreneurs who, as you mentioned, are in that sweet spot of being on the cusp of starting their own business? Look,
it's a scary time, and I think that nobody goes into 100% confident. I think that we need to kind of rewrite the rules with business a bit. That the attitude that you're always going to feel totally committed to what you're doing, full of bravado, full of confidence, that's for me quite a male energy. It isn't how I've done business. I've done the journey and I've been full of self-doubt at times, and I've wondered whether it's going to work. But that's what helps you build up your resilience, really, because you sit with that discomfort and you do it anyway. And I think if more women could understand that is totally normal. Like, I've run a business for 6 years, and I did an interview yesterday where she said, do you ever have moments of self-doubt? And I was like, look, running your own business is hour by hour you're flipping between I've got this to, I don't know if I've got this, I've got this, I don't know if I've got this. And that is what it is, and that's totally fine. And everything you're feeling is so valid and is so normal. But the thing is that you don't have to act on it. Just because you have a moment of panic, it doesn't mean the project's not right. It doesn't mean it's not working. And the other thing I would say, especially to women starting businesses, is work out what success looks like to you. Because I think for women, it's a very different set of ideas often, and we don't have one single yardstick to measure success. And it may be a certain number that you might want to make with your company, or a certain amount of employees, but it might also be being able to only work 3 days a week or look after your kid. It might be a totally different thing. And I think getting rid of some of the structures in place that tell us that this is what success looks like will be really beneficial, because I think you have to be gentle with yourself. Like, for me, it's being able to do this podcast at home wearing my running kit so I can go for a run afterwards. Like, that for me feels like success, because I'm able to look after my schedule and do what makes me feel good. So, be honest with yourself and work out what those values are to you.
I want to go back quickly to what you said about self-doubt and being able to identify it in the moment. What would you say to women who do experience that self-doubt and they do actually find that it cripples them?
Yeah, it's difficult, because I think a healthy amount of self-doubt is good, because it makes you question things. It makes you often, push yourself harder and ask yourself questions, but then you don't want so much self-doubt that you're just unable to do anything. I find often that self-doubt with women is linked to imposter syndrome, so not feeling like what they're doing is valid, feeling like they're a fake or a fraud, that they don't have all the tools in place to do the thing. What I've learned kind of anecdotally with women is that then they often don't want to do things when they don't have everything in place, or they don't feel like they've learned all the skills yet, whereas men will very often just want to throw themselves into something and are quite happy to like learn